Hey everybody, it's Andy, Cloudy Milder, your self-proclaimed metal mogul. Something a little bit different in this video. I am going to show all the different versions I have of one of my favourite albums, which is by Anthrax, and it's Spreading the Disease. There's a couple of motivators for this video. First off, I showed one of the a reissue that I picked up in my last video, and one of the viewers, Frank, his name is, well, his channel name is Frank. He said, sounds like you could do an entire video just on your collection of Spread the Disease pressings. Could be fun. And I said, well, it's a bit geeky and a bit nichey. I did one of those for my Iron Maiden debut album collection one time, and he said geeky and nichey is what we want to see. So here it is. And the second motivator is a long time YouTube friend, Chris Hanson, is having a contest, his 5Ws contest, and it involves showing an album by your favourite band. So I thought I would link the two in. So Chris is turning 50 and he's embracing it, and he's going to be joining the club, much like I did in the last year and a half. So I want to use this video as well to give him a little bit of a shout out and support him in his contest. So I'm going to use his questions, a little bit of an intro, and then I'm going to go in and show you all the different versions of the album that I have. I certainly don't have every version out there, and I'm certainly not busting a gut to get them all, but each of these I've picked up as and when I've come across them, either eBay or Discogs, or even out in the wild as well. On occasion, there are a few. I think they're mostly European, UK pressings. As I said, there are a couple more out there that I would love to add in, but as and when I come across them, there's no rush. It wasn't something I intended setting out to do, was collecting Spreading the Disease by Anthrax, but like I say, it is one of my favourite albums of all time. It got me into thrash and it got me into Anthrax, and I've loved it ever since I first heard it, which was back in around 1986, I think. I've even got the t-shirt. This is like a modern reproduction, I think, of a German or Dutch tour t-shirt. So let's use Chris's questions as an intro for this video, and then I'll show you what I have on vinyl, CD and cassette. His first question was, who is your favourite artist? Well, obviously I have picked Anthrax. I have 5 distinct bands that I would say are my favourites. They're all different genres, so it's I don't even try and compare and contrast them against each other, but Anthrax is my favourite from the thrash genre, so that's who I have picked. What is your favourite album in question? Well, that's Spreading the Disease. When did you buy the album? So I had it on a dub tape. I can't remember who I copied it off, but that was my introduction to Anthrax, was a single side of probably a TDK 90. I didn't buy the album until about or have a physical copy of it till about 2014, I think it was. That's when I got into getting vinyl again, and it was the first purchase that I'd ever made on Discogs. Never used them before, didn't really understand what all the different pressings meant or what all the different gradings meant, so I grabbed a VG Media, VG cover rated copy of Spread the Disease for the pricely sum of £2.99. It made me realise that VG was not the condition of records that I wanted to buy, and kind of went for second hand, certainly VG Plus and above. But I've still got that copy to the day, and it's one of those ones that you will see coming up shortly. It certainly plays okay, but it's a little loud and crackly in between the songs. But $2.99, you won't find a copy of Spread the Disease in any condition on vinyl for $2.99 now. It's at least 7 times that, looking at the prices on Discogs at the moment. So that was when I bought the album, although I was obviously familiar with it a good 30 years before. When did I buy the album? Discogs. And why did I buy the album? Well, I wanted it. I wanted a copy on vinyl. I was getting back into collecting physical media again, and that was right at the top of my list of albums that I needed to have in my collection. So thanks, Chris, for kind of providing the 5Ws as a bit of an intro for this video. So let me show you what you've come to see. So, but before that, so Spread the Disease was released in October '85, and it's kind of a watershed moment for the year for thrash really taking off, and also for Anthrax as well. Fistful of Metal was more of kind of a speed metal album, really, and at the end of the touring of that album, they sacked Neil Turbin, and at the request of oh god, I can never remember his name. What's his name? The guy from the Rods, Carl Kennedy, drummer from the Rods, producer of the first Anthrax album and Spread the Disease as well. He suggested that they try out Joey Belladonna, who didn't have a metal background at all, and despite the misgivings of the band, they hired him, took him on tour, and he just worked, and he is still one of my favourite metal vocalists, certainly thrash metal vocalists. I've always had a fondness for thrash metal with really clean not so much for melodic vocals, but just clear and clean vocals, and Joey Belladonna has always been the best for that. So before they got round to releasing Spreading the Disease, they did put out the Armed and Dangerous EP. I think, rather ironically, I think it was actually Neil Turbin that wrote the lyrics for Armed and Dangerous. I bought this in around 1986 after I had Spread the Disease on tape. I wasn't going to go out and buy it in the 80s on vinyl because I had it on tape. I spent my money on something I didn't have, and I bought this one from Spillers Records. It has Armed and Dangerous and Raise Hell studio versions, and God Save the Queen, Metal Thrashing Mad Live, and Panic Live on the flip side. And this I think pretty much showed that Joey Belladonna was here to stay. I also have this only actually arrived today. I've never had it on CD before, and I found this double CD of the Fistful of Metal with bizarrely censored, that's the word I was looking for, censored, and the Armed and Dangerous EP, and it's got a couple of extra tracks on here. It's got Soldiers of Metal and Howling Furies, collector's rare tracks. So I'm looking forward to giving that one a spin. Never had that one on CD before. So Spread the Disease came out. Now this was the first copy that I bought. This was the VG from Discogs. As the cover is a little beat up, it's got a few creases, a small seam split here. It is on the Music Formations label, but what intrigued me, I remember when I bought it, was the fact that it was a Patrick Swayze, and that just seemed a little bit too early. And it turned out, when I was getting into things, that this is actually a later pressing. I still think it's 1985. It's a bit unclear on Discogs, if I'm honest. But this was the label that sort of Music Formations was transitioning from the plain label that they had to the Patrick Swayze, as I like to call it, on here in the sort of around the 86 time. So this may well be a sort of 86 repress. So it sounds pretty good. It's a little bit scratched up. It has the Charlie Benante drawn in a sleeve with lyrics. Now there are some subtle differences. The next two versions I'm going to show are all MFN 62, Music Foundations 62. That's the flag bearer up here, and the barcode. This is a bit of a giveaway because not many, if any, albums in 1985 in the UK had a barcode on them. So I kind of thought, it must be a reissue at the time, and it is. It's a repress, really, perhaps a little bit later on. So I dug deeper, and over the years I've come across, whether eBay or Discogs, other versions. This is also UK pressing, Music Foundation 62, although this is a first pressing, as you can see by the older Music Foundations logo label that we have on here. Still has the caricature inner sleeve and lyrics, but on the back here you can see it's a little bit different. We now have no barcode and just the MFN 62 above, and the third MFN 62 pressing that I have, again very similar. There's a little bit of different coloration on the releases. The later one has, this is more grey up here, it's a bit redder in colour. This is probably the nicest copy I have, the cleanest copy of the original press. The difference between this one and the last one is very subtle. It's really just the island label down here at the bottom that is on the sleeve. Otherwise everything else is pretty much identical, and I'm going to have to make sure that I don't mix these up when I put them away after. Got so much spread this one out. Again, we have the older Music Foundations pressing label. The inner sleeve is pretty much, if not exactly the same, with the lyrics as well. So those are my three kind of OG pressings, should we say, or certainly two first presses, one still mid-80s repress or reissue. I don't know if it's a reissue, it's probably exactly the same recording, but just repressed to continue with the sales, I guess. So the songs on here, let me tell you what I love about this. I love every single song on this album. Armed and Dangerous and Gung Ho both have lyrics credited to Neil Turbin. Medusa actually has lyrics credited to John Zazula, who was the executive producer. We don't know John Zazula. It's produced by Carl Kennedy, say, of The Rods, and engineered by thrash metal legend Alex Perialis. AIR, awesome start to the album. It kicks off as it goes on, full throttle all the way. Lone Justice. Now, I'd got into Anthrax, or I'd heard this album after I'd heard that they'd released a song about Judge Dredd, and until I'd actually heard I Am the Law, and in fact picked up the single for I Am the Law, I thought Lone Justice was the song about Judge Dredd, and it wasn't until, obviously, I got Among the Living that I realised that I'd been wrong all along. It sounds very much more like a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western type character it's about, but I have read more recently that it is based on the character from The Dark Tower by Stephen King, the gunslinger. I picked this up a few months back just to expecting to read it during lockdown and just see if I could get any of the context of the book in the song, but I just haven't got around to reading it yet. I will one of these days. Madhouse, the third song, that was the one and only single, I think, off this album, which I have a couple of copies of that, which I'll chuck in at the end. SSE, Stand or Fall. Again, it has a it's full on. It builds up to a crescendo and doesn't let you down. The Enemy, Aftershock, Armed and Dangerous, Medusa and Gung Ho are just a full-on thrash metal attack to end this album. You can see the lineup here as well. We have Charlie Benanti on drums, Scott Ian with hair on rhythm guitar, Joey Belladonna on vocals, Dan Spitz on lead guitar, and Frank Bello, who was also new to the band for this album, replacing, of course, Dan Lilker, who went on to form Nuclear Assault. Other pressings I have of this on vinyl are also Music Foundations pressing. This is the picture disc. This is MFN 62p. And this is this was a great find. It's probably the most expensive of the vinyl I've bought for them, but still a very, very reasonable price. I'm not a massive fan of picture discs. I wouldn't generally pick them up, given that all you're buying, I mean, basically that's what it came in. You don't get any the lyric sheet, you don't get any of the additional artwork, and you don't even get a proper cover to keep it in. And lastly, from the vinyl point of view, and the album that I showed in the last video that prompted Frank to ask to see all the different versions, is the Back on Black 2010 a reissue, which is really hard to come by these days. You will still find lots of copies. So this is on a gatefold, so there's nothing on the insides. Back on Black don't do sort of reproduction of inner sleeves. They tend to either put a collage or something in the middle, or reproduce the inner sleeve within the gatefold. As I was saying, yeah, so this is really hard to come by. It's easier to find an OG, although the OGs are pretty expensive, which is probably why they're easy to find, because nobody really wants to pay that kind of price. But yeah, even a 2010 reissue was really before the vinyl revolution kicked off again. And there are one or two other reissues. There's a white vinyl one as well. This one's on a yellow vinyl. She showed it in the last video, and has a custom label, same both sides of the cover as well. There is a white vinyl version, which I'd kind of love to get as well, but again, I'm not going to, I don't need it. I'd like it, but I don't need it. But one day I will try and grab a copy of that too. So that's all the copies of the album that I have on vinyl. As I mentioned, I have a couple of copies of Madhouse, the 12-inch single. I think there's about 8 versions of this in all. It has the single Madhouse on side 1, and then it has live versions of AIR and God Save the Queen on side 2, and it is on White Island Records label. Now, this other version I came across a little bit by accident, and from what I can gather, it wasn't an official release by the band. They didn't know too much about it. They were blindsided by it. It is an official release, though. Notice here it's obviously got this big sticker. There were 4 versions of this single released. One at the Cardiff gig, one at the Edinburgh gig, one at the Belfast gig, and one at the Bradford gig. They all have different coloured stickers on them, and the idea being that it's perforated here, that you fill your name and address in. You buy all 4. I don't know how many people went to all 4 of those gigs, or even found all 4 of these. You fill your name and address in, and you can win, enter the Anthrax prize draw. It doesn't even tell you what you're going to win. One of a series of 4 tour souvenir recordings, the Anthrax prize draw. Buy all 4 live recordings and return this half of each perforated sticker to enter a free trip to see Anthrax live in Europe. So a pretty decent prize, I guess, for 1985. But these are incredibly hard to come by. I've only ever seen the Edinburgh one advertised since I actually found this and dug a little bit deeper into it. To all intents and purposes, it looks the same. It's got the same cover, same track listing on the back, and it has the same songs on it, even the same labels. But the recording of Madhouse is a live version, but there's nothing on here to say that it is. Madhouse also featured on the Grand Theft Auto Vice City soundtrack. Again, this was a recent pickup as well. Absolutely fantastic compilation album. Other versions I've got a couple of CDs. This is, I'm not too sure when this was released. Again, Discogs is undecided as well. All the dates on here are 1985, but again, there were no fancy barcodes in 1985, and in fact there weren't really that many CD releases in the UK, certainly back in 1985. So it's probably very late 80s, early 90s release. This is the Island Masters version. it has a booklet which just consists of lyrics, so we don't even have that nice Charlie Bianante artwork to look at anymore. A nice sort of silver CD. Silver CDs, I guess, were fairly early on in the late 80s and 90s, so I'm guessing it's from around that time. 2015, the 30th anniversary edition double CD was released. It's in one of these horrendous just a cardboard. It's a digipack, so the two CDs are within digipacks, but it's just really ungainly, the fact that there's four pages to it, and there's nothing really to stop it wobbling about. But you get some nice picture CDs, a few quotes and what have you, and Charlie's drawings back. I don't think there's a booklet for this either, which is kind of a real shame. Or is it? Oh no, there is. Do you know what? I don't even know if I've ever looked at this booklet. And we have the Not Man as well. But yeah, so CD1 is obviously the album, and with an extra track, Medusa, which is Joey Belladonna demo, and then disc 2 is a bunch of some live tracks, Sun Plaza Tokyo shows, and some rhythm track tapes as well. So the booklet is pretty unimpressive for a 30th anniversary. It's kind of very similar to the original CD one, with a little bit of a write-up in there, but just a glossy sleeve as well. And last but not least, in the last couple of years, I picked up a tape version of Spreading the Disease, because why not? This is actually in pretty good shape, plays really well. 1985 release, clear cassette shell, and nothing much in terms of the J card either. It is literally just a J. No lyrics, track listing, thank yous, and yeah, there we go. So there we have it, a whole video dedicated to just one album and about 6 or 7 versions of it. It's one of my favourite albums. I realise it's not everybody's favourite Anthrax album. Most people's is Among the Living. That's also a absolutely fantastic album, but for me, it'll always be Spreading the Disease. Thanks for watching.